Right. So this is game two. Game two, Luos versus Papa Franks, and let's get the thingy up, and introduce the players. So it's Luos in the top left, Gill, Jeff, and down in the bottom right is Papa Franks. Not in the previous game, both players played a very similar build in the early stages, but it was Luos that then managed to get his spending underway that little bit quicker. Get a nice force of 2/2 roaches and hydras and bust through the front door to take the first game. So let's see how things are going to progress here in game two. Luos sending the Overlord across the map to scout, which is all very, very normal. Pull first, and as I mentioned in the previous game, pull first isn't uncommon when you're playing CVC, but I don't mind this either. I'm perfectly happy to go hatch first. In general, if you have gone hatch first, I wouldn't necessarily build it that early. My kind of a pretty reasonable standard opening to follow if you're playing as Zerg. You drone up to 14, you build an Overlord, you build 3 more drones once the Overlord comes out, and you will have the money to do that. With one of those drones, you build your expand, and you should find it times reasonably well, as the 3 drones appear. If you've just got one of them rallied down to your natural expand, you've probably got enough money for the hatchery just as it arrives. So you get that hatchery placed, and then you don't want to be too greedy. You would then want to get your spawning pool down before you build anything else. Then you can start to think about gas and those types of things. And that's just a very sort of generic standard Zerg opening. It's not the fastest spawning pool, but it's not the slowest either. It's not super greedy, but it's greedy enough that you'll have a healthy economy in the early game, and you will be able to get some gas down, and you won't miss the 3 workers that you transfer into gas too badly, and all of those types of things. So anyway, Papa Franks with 6 lings just appearing. The Queen is in production, and there is a Spore Crawler, interestingly, being made here in the mineral line. I'm not sure about that. A Spine Crawler in this kind of almost mirror image build on the other side of the map in terms of the building placement. I think at this stage I'd rather have the spine than the spore. I don't think you're likely to have any air come in and harass you, and the Queen is enough to chase away Overlords. So yeah, not sure about that. That might be simply a mistake. Okay, so Papa Frank's looking reasonably proficient. The Queen is going to chase this Overlord away. There is spore creep trimmers being spread. There are drones being produced. The expo is up. There's a handful of lings waiting to defend against anything that might show up. On the other side of the map, again, Luos with this double evolution chamber does like an upgrade. Looks like he's lost that Overlord look, and he's now supply blocked, and with no Overlord in production, that he is going to be supply blocked now for quite a long time. So here there's the Overlord being built. Build time on an Overlord at 18 seconds. Oops. Is that because you forgot to build an Overlord? So now 2 Overlords being built, and yeah, that's a bit of an error, but not to worry. In general, if you're playing, you're scouting with your Overlords, what's pretty normal to do is once an Overlord starts taking fire, if it's like here and the Queen takes a pot shot at it, it's going to survive, you're okay. But if it's deep and the Queen starts shooting it, as soon as it starts taking fire, really you need to get another one building, because there's a pretty high chance that you're going to lose it, and you definitely don't want to be supply blocked in the early game. You want to keep your production nice and fluid. So Papa Franks at this point with a reasonable chunk of lings. I'd like to see this ling push in and have a look, because I can't help but think that if he did that, he would realise that he has got a reasonable number advantage in terms of army supply, and he might want to push that. He might want to press in there and see if he can get something done, which there's a pretty good chance he could, especially if more lings in production there. So yeah, I that's a reasonable amount of Ling. You could definitely get something done with that, but speed is very lit. Speed only starting now at almost the 5-minute mark. But the layer finishes up, which means that's a clear sign that Lings are not really his intended tech path. So he is looking to go into some Lartechs, some Roaches, maybe Hydras, or perhaps Mutalisks or something like that, who knows. All of those things are going to cost gas, so he definitely needs to get another gas town. He definitely needs to build a few more workers, with only 9 workers mining minerals here in the main, and only 3-4 in this base. His income is actually not in great shape. Look how low the mineral income is here. So even though he got this expand up nice and early, went hatch first, he's actually skinned. So hasn't got that balance between building units and workers quite right just at present. So he does want to transition into the Spire. And the Spire is great, Mutalisks are great, but as a top tip, they're also expensive. So if you do want to build mutas, what you need as a kind of minimum is 2 hatcheries saturated with all 4 gases taken, because mutas are expensive. They're 100 gas each, and at present you don't even have 100 gas. So you definitely, in preparation for building the Spire on its own is of no use to you unless you've got enough gas to support production from it. And I think one of the things that we can see that's happened here is that Papa Franks hasn't replaced the workers that he's used to create buildings. So each one of these buildings is a worker that has been turned into a building. So he's built this and he's sent 3 workers into it. So there's 4 workers, 5 workers, 6 workers, 7 workers, 8 workers. So we're 8 workers short of where we should be straight away. And so 1 Mutalisk building. Mutalisks are brilliant, but 1 Mutalisk is effectively pretty useless. You're not going to get anything done with a single Mutalisk other than just scouting around the map. They are potent in numbers, and he really needs to work on making sure on his gas timings. Basically, you can see that the minerals heartily outweigh the gas. And do keep an eye, of course, on your supply as well, because Mutalisks cost supply. Well, everything costs supply, I know, but Mutalisks to a piece, a bit like the Roaches, you do have to be thinking about every 4 Mutalisks that you build. You have to build an Overlord as well. Okie dokie. So the creep spread is very, very nice actually for Luos here. I'd like to see this connected up, but it's so close to connected, it's not a big deal. He's got a bit of a surplus of workers here, I guess, has just not quite got around to transferring them to there. Papa Franks moves in with the Overseer in thingy mode. I can't remember what it's called, like thingy mode. I don't know, when it does this, which gives it some extra vision range, but means it can't move, so it can see what's going on here, and that's it catches a little bit of an edge of that and is able to hopefully see some unit composition, because Mace, yep, can see these Roaches, so he knows what he's up against. Now, Lings don't really fare well against Roaches, but I'll tell you what does, Mutalisks, because Roaches don't shoot up. But with that said, Mutalisks do a lot of very useful damage to workers and light units because of the way they do splash, but Roaches are armoured units, and actually Mutalisks take a huge amount of time to kill Roaches. And with these Hydras coming out as well, Hydras very quickly gun down Mutalisks. So to actually take this on with just Mutalisks, you would need a lot of Mutalisks. An awful lot, because these Hydras will shoot the Mutas pretty quickly, and while Hydras are soft, they're light, so Mutalisks can gun down Hydras quite effectively. The presence of the Roaches will soak up some of the splash damage, so actually having these Roaches in with the Hydras does help to protect the Hydras in a fight against Mutalisks, which is kind of weird because the Roaches don't actually shoot up themselves. So at present, this army of Luos would stomp a mud hole through even a pretty large pack of Mutalisks. not 2-2 just finishing up here. Let's see what these mutants can get done. I don't believe there's upgrades on them, but that's okay, because what you want to do with these Mutalisks is not fight this. What you want to do is sneak in around the back into the mineral lines and get work done on the workers, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. Once these Hydras turn on, we want to run for, oh look how quickly they just pop, you know, these +2 Hydras, literally just, you know, not all of them actually got the shot off, but enough of them got the shot off to just gun down those Mutalisk in a sort of one pop. So while getting these worker kills is great, you must be aware, Papa Franks, that this stuff is moving toward your base. So I'm a little concerned that his time is being spent microing this when he needs to be. You know, there's nothing in production, there's nothing happening at home because he's not looking. But he must know that this is coming, and it is going to be devastating. There's just nothing here that can see this off. You know, there's far fewer spines than there were last time. This is a similar army comp that's coming. Yes, there's a lot of lings, but you know, lings against these roaches just aren't going to do anything really. As you can see, they're just dancing around getting shot. These Mutalisks aren't going to be able to get anything done. And so this Roach Hydra composition is just going to decimate everything in front of it. And to be honest, Lewis just managing, you know, really winning this game by managing to just power up his economy and his production much more quickly than Papa Franks. Papa Franks, I liked the idea, you know, yes, get some lings out, maybe be a bit more aggressive with them, and yes, then transition into Mutalisks. That's a famously effective build for a Zerg player. But you know, the errors were in allowing your economy to decline as you were getting your tech in place. You needed to get the gas geysers down in advance so that you know, are already mining the gas you're going to need to build the Mutalisks. Don't wait for the spire to finish and then build the gas. Because you know, it takes a long time to mine enough gas. You know, if you want to build 8 Mutalisks, imagine even with 4 gas geysers, it takes quite a long time to mine 800 gas. So, you know, that stuff needs to be in place in advance. The overlords need to be built in advance, so you've got the free supply, all of those types of things, so that when that spire finishes up, you're holding on the T button and you're cranking out 8 Mutalisks straight away. Getting those out that bit earlier, getting them into the back of your opponent's mineral line, doing damage, then buys you the time to transition into something tasteful. Because, you know, Mutalisks, while they are great harass units, they very seldom win you a game. Has this like stopped as the spire is exploding? Is that what I'm looking at there? That is cool. That is awesome. Look at that. That's genius. I don't think I've ever seen that before. Games just stopped just as the spire was being obliterated and leaking its guts out all over the show. That is pretty cool. Very nice. Yeah, so you know, those were the really, that was the key mistake that Papa Franks made. I had nothing against the strategy, the style that he was playing. Hatch first, into lings, into Mutalisks. These are all good things, but the execution just let down by that lack of gas and allowing his worker numbers to decline. Lewis, meanwhile, doing you know, actually a really good job of getting his economy up at the same time as teching up. But you know, if we think back in that game, there were times when Papa Franks could have gone in and done a lot of damage, and some slightly more aggressive scouting, some slightly more aggressive positioning with those Zerglings that he'd built, definitely could have caused that game to come out very differently. So yeah, cool. GG. I think I've got one more match set of replays to cast for you from sort of round 1, and then we'll be into round 2. So I'll see if I can dig those out now. Hopefully the Windows recording tool is working okay. I noticed that it doesn't let me record in sort of 1440p, so it's in 1080, but I think it's in at 60 FPS. So hopefully the picture quality and stuff is all right. And I haven't really checked how the mic is set up and stuff. Hopefully that is okay too. Yeah, man. GG.